This movie is basically a meta story of the actual Disney acquisition of Fox Century. Hello and welcome to May the Review Be With You with Nick and Joe. I'm Joe.
I'm Nick.
There he is. For a moment, I didn't think you were actually going to say anything.
I'm preparing for my 15-second summary. I didn't forget, and I'm really mad I have to do it.
Oh man! Wow, we're just starting out guns a-blazing. Just guns and katanas and adamantium skeleton a-blazing. We were talking about Deadpool and Wolverine today. Also, we haven't changed our clothes in a week because of a disgusting animal. If you've been following the timeline of our House of the Dragon Season 2 review, just didn't feel like changing. You know, it's the same philosophy of when you're on a hot streak, you can't watch the uniform. You just gotta roll in as is, right? If it works, it works.
What is laundry? I don't know. Oh, we're getting loopy. Here we go.
We're getting loopy. I wore the brown pants.
Well.
Anyway, yes, Deadpool and Wolverine. Don't call it Deadpool 3. They'll find you. They'll correct you. It is the third installment of Ryan Reynolds' masterpiece. Certainly his passion project.
Yeah.
And simultaneously, while being the third entry, it is the first entry into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I think a lot of people were anticipating what this was going to be like. I think we all had a lot of questions on how this was going to work.
Yep.
And we got those questions answered. Okay.
For the most part.
That's true. For the most part. Nick, how are you feeling? You saw it pretty recently.
Yeah, I saw it a little bit late. But I did see it. I mean, and extremely fun. Extremely well done. Classic Deadpool film. And then we get Hugh Jackman as Wolverine again, and they figured out how to do it in a way that didn't make me feel like everything that happened previously to Logan and Wolverine was wasted, essentially. And they even joke about that too at the beginning of the film. So yeah, I think they did it extremely well. Just a fun cameo-filled movie that maybe doesn't have quite as big of a purpose as people thought it would when it was all said and done, but extremely fun, and I think definitely opens up some doors and some questions for what's to come in the MCU.
Right, and chief among them is, why was Thor crying?
Right.
100%.
Why is Thor crying?
Why is Thor crying?
And why is Deadpool important? Like, what is he supposed to do that's important?
Right? Okay. I mean, do you think that was an MCU decision? Hey, we have a reason why Deadpool needs to be part of this Avengers level threat, and we want you to hint at it. Or do you think Ryan Reynolds inserted himself into that and has screwed future Marvel writers on how to work with that?
I think both are possible. I think that it's more likely that the MCU needed someone to help them reset everything because of the Kang fiasco and the legal stuff that happened with Majors. And who better to completely in the most meta way, call out the MCU and the multiverse saga and essentially say it to the audience's face that everything that has happened just before this film can be considered null and void in most cases. So here we go we're moving on from here, the only character in the MCU at all that could do that is Deadpool and Ryan Reynolds. So the MCU just needed him to help them fix whatever everyone thought was broken, which maybe wasn't as broken as everyone thought it was, but there's a lot of perfect storm type stuff going on, in my opinion, with these last couple phases of the MCU. But we can get into that in a minute.
Get into that in a minute. For now, I think it's about that time
Oh.
that, as Nick already foreshadowed, it is time for the 15-second summary. Yay!
Woo, 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 woo.
Let me get a stopwatch for you, Nick. And while I'm getting that stopwatch, for those who are unfamiliar, for the uninitiated, we, because we like to torture ourselves, force each other to summarize whatever movie it is that we are reviewing in 15 seconds or less. And the other person, this case, it will be me, will judge the hell out of the person reciting the summary. In this case, Nick, who has been tasked with this 15-second summary of Deadpool and Wolverine. Nick, how are we feeling?
Feeling great. Hit me.
All right. When I say go, 3, 2, 1, go.
Deadpool is tasked with finding a new Logan or Wolverine for his world because his world lost its anchor being because Logan died, so he needs to find a new one to help him save his world. In the meantime, they find themselves in the void and come across a ton of old memes that we wish we could see again. That was going okay, and then it wasn't going so okay towards the end there.
You were off to a pretty good... I think what you were doing, like, you were like, I'm saying the plot. Here's the plot. I've said the plot. All right, now I'm going to just tell you what the whole rest of the movie is.
Yeah, exactly. Here's the plot. Oh, wait, there's a void.
There's a void in the plot?
Shit.
Not
terrible. It's pretty good.
I was going to say, that wasn't bad for you. You've had some pretty spectacular crash and burns in the past.
Yeah.
That was pretty good.
Thank you.
I would say like you actually got the plot down. So I'm gonna give you a respectable B.
Nice.
Respectable B here.
Big accept.
Well, that's all you can do because in this case I am judge, jury, and executioner until I am on trial next time. Next time on May the Review with you.
Anyway.
All right. Anyways, we like to have fun here. So Deadpool Wolverine. This is, I think you said it best, Nick. This is a really fun movie.
Yeah.
And you can tell that most, if not everyone working on this project is having a really fun time. It's definitely, as you said, it's not the movie that's going to change everything. It's not even, I think some people were going into this as if it was going to be like Avengers Infinity War, like something crazy, like,
yeah.
It's not that movie either. I think it's important. It's an important chapter in the MCU, especially for where we're going ultimately. But at the end of the day, it's a funny comedy action movie. Good buddy cop movie, honestly. Yeah, I was pretty happy when I left the movie theater. There was a moment where I was like, I think this is the best Deadpool movie, but then I realized I was just kind of riding a high. And I thought about it later, and I was like, no, I think this might be the worst Deadpool movie, actually.
That's funny.
I'll explain that thought later. But getting into it, Nick, let's talk plot. As you just summarized, what'd you think about the plot of this movie? As you said, it's about Deadpool trying to save his world by finding a new anchor being with Logan. So...
Yeah, this was interesting. I really enjoyed it because the whole anchor being thing hadn't been discussed really at all yet in the MCU, right? This is like a new concept they kind of introduced to us for the first time here, if I'm not mistaken.
May I interject here?
Yeah, please. I said if I'm not mistaken.
Specifically about that. I just
Great.
thought about it earlier today.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you're correct. This is the first time that they've introduced the words anchor being.
Mm-hmm.
However, I have a theory that an anchor being is the exact same thing as a variant, but things are different now. So if you remember the season 1 timeline of Loki, when they explain variants, a variant is a character who goes off the plan of the sacred timeline and creates a whole new world line. And as soon as the TVA gets involved and prunes that character, they prune that world line and it disappears. Almost like that whole world existed around that character, right? Now, granted, the TVA did prune that timeline, but Paradox explains in this movie that, the world will disappear in, about 2,000 years or so, but we're going to get rid of it faster because that's the way we used to do things. So I think variants and anger beings are the same exact thing, but our approach to how we deal with variant timelines now is different. You know, you feel me? You feel what I'm saying here?
Yeah, interesting. I'm not remotely prepared to have this conversation. My brain is already has questions. Oh, well, but the problem is the anchor. So you're saying the anchor beings that we're talking about are essentially the variants in these branch timelines, because obviously in the world that we're in now, Loki is the master of time, and there are no, everything is allowed to go haywire and branch. Yeah. So variants can go into can go off book and create their own timelines, and then they become the anchor being of those timelines. When those anchor beings die, the branch timeline essentially will eventually cease to exist. Woo! That is fascinating. I think that
second summary,
dude. That makes a ton of sense, and yeah, you might be completely right about that. That's fascinating. That is really cool.
That was a shower thought today.
Very interesting. I like that. I like this whole concept, though. Right? It's very interesting, and yeah, they introduced the anchor being thing, and then so like from a plot perspective, really cool. And the way to kind of bring it all together, obviously, is they give us the detail that this Deadpool that we know is the same timeline as essentially the X-Men and Wolverine that we grew up with, right? They were all in the same timeline, which that wasn't really confirmed, right? We didn't know that.
That's correct. That was never
and
really
then
confirmed.
So they confirmed that in this film. And so the cool part about the plot is that Logan was the anchor being of Deadpool's timeline. And so when Logan dies at the end of Logan, self-titled flick, it now means that Deadpool's world is going to slowly disintegrate over a number of thousands of years. Of course, this rogue TVA agent wants to do it much quicker, and I like that storyline. It brings the TVA back in, which I love the TVA, and of course, it shows us that there's still some internal politics and turmoil within the TVA because, you know, they completely changed their organization within like 3 days to how they operate, right? Back in Loki. And so with that can come some conflict and some disagreement with employees, if you will. So it's, I think it was interesting, and it made sense, right? That there is a TVA agent who's a little bit rogue here and wants to do it a different way because he's not okay with change. So I like that whole concept.
Yeah, I did too. It was really just fun to have like the TVA back to some capacity, right? And it's really neat to see, like, you know, our suspicions of, you know, Loki right from season 1, that TVA is ultimately going to be something that's really important for the future of the MCU. That's pretty much confirmed in this movie. It's like wherever we're going with Avengers, like Secret Wars, like the TVA is going to be highly involved.
Yeah,
right?
Big time.
Yeah. Of all the Marvel TV shows, like that feels like it is. I mean, we knew at the end of season 2, but it's the most important one.
Yeah, and thankfully it is still as important with all of the changes that have been going on, because it's such a big storyline that they'd set up. And so they're obviously pivoting away from Kang, at least for the time being. And now that we've got this Robert Downey Jr. is playing Doctor Doom. So obviously the new big bad of the next couple phases is going to be Doctor Doom. And we're still going to be dealing with the multiverse saga, even though Deadpool was hinting at it, you know, everything that's happened essentially being shit, and that Marvel's going to move on from it. But we're not moving on from the multiverse because Deadpool itself was essentially a multiverse film. So it's not completely going away. We're just going to kind of, I guess, maybe retcon on a lot of the stuff that's happened so far. Maybe not completely retcon. We're just going to like ignore it for a while, because I feel like the Kang storyline is still so cool and so important and has so much potential that they just need to let it breathe and not touch it for a couple years and take care of go with Doctor Doom like they're going to do. And then I think you can always come back and bring Kang back in based on what they've done so far, because I don't think they were too deep to where they can't come back to it. At least that's what I hope happens long term. But I know we're not talking about that. We're supposed to be talking about Deadpool and Wolverine. But anyway.
I mean, it's kind of hard to talk about this movie and not talk about the future of the MCU, though, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Because, I mean, this movie is self-contained, but it really does set up what we can... It sets up a good idea of, like, the direction that the MCU is going to be headed. Mm-hmm. I think before the news of RDJ coming back out of the MCU, I think there has been this question for a long time of, like, who is the new Iron Man? Like, that the, you know, story, like, kind of resolves itself around, right? Like, who's the actor who's, like, bringing people in? And, I mean, RDJ was that, right? Like, right from Iron Man 1. The whole thing kind of swirled around him, right. To the end of Endgame. And there hasn't been a character or an actor or an actress who's come at it with, like, the same amount of charisma and has been able to, I think, like, generate the same amount of, like, hype that RDJ could, which proofs in the pudding when, you know, with the recent announcement, right? But had that announcement not happened, damn, I would have told you I think it's Ryan Reynolds and Deadpool. And maybe that's self-anointed, right? Like, I mean, he's self-anointing himself as that guy.
Right.
But damn, does he have the charisma to pull it off?
Yeah. I just have more questions, though, about the Robert Downey thing. Just still blows my mind a little bit, because I'm assuming that Doctor Doom and the MCU we're talking about is still Earth 616, right?
I don't think that the Doctor Doom that we're gonna get is from 616.
So he's not from 616, but he will make his way to 616 because of the multiverse.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
That I agree with. Like,
that makes sense.
Whatever happens in Fantastic Four First Steps, I think, like, we get a tease of Doctor Doom, like, at the end of that movie.
Okay, that makes sense. The other thing too is, as far as Deadpool and Wolverine goes, so many cameos. I love how they basically brought all of Fox superheroes and X-Men, like, into the MCU with this film, basically, right? They were just like, it's all canon in Earth, 10,005, basically. Like, really fun way to do it. I think it's great for fans. And it was really cool to see a lot of those characters again. It was annoying to see some of them as well, because I don't think you can love all of them, but even the annoying ones were fun. But I have
questions about who you think was annoying.
Yeah, but the two things real quick that I really wanted to ask you about is, how did Deadpool get to 616?
Oh, okay, yeah, I had thoughts about this. So it doesn't really make sense, right? This is all I've got. Okay. So the time slider that he has from Deadpool 2.
Yeah.
If you remember the end of that movie, like, he goes back and he saves Vanessa with the time slider, but then, for the sake of a joke, they use the time slider to take him to other universes, right? Where he goes to, I guess this is the same universe now, but he goes to X-Men Wolverine Origins, right? He goes to the DC universe and he kills Ryan Reynolds. Or no, I guess, no, he didn't go to the DC universe. Sorry. He went to our universe and he killed Ryan Reynolds.
Right.
I forgot where else he goes during that sequence. But yeah, he universe hopped using that time slider. We forgave it because it was funny. But in this movie, they were like, yeah, it still does that. We're committing to that, because they're like, fuck it and fuck you. Like, don't think about it too hard, nerds.
Yeah, so I thought that that's basically the reason that he still had that device, I guess, and he was just using that. Which, okay, that's fine. And I guess they had to, like, give us more reason to and show us that he, I don't know, maybe it was like some extra plot point to bring home the fact that he's not, Earth 616 Deadpool. But there is a 616 Deadpool, right? Most likely. So I mean,
comics, yes, but, like, I think this tells us that there isn't.
Okay.
Unless, like, until we are proven wrong. I think this tells us that there isn't, and, like, this is why, like, canonically why they need to bring Deadpool into the MCU.
Right. So, and then the other question I had still relates to this, and it relates to the time hopping at the end of Deadpool 2, because Ryan Reynolds plays a version of Deadpool at the end of X-Men Origins, or not at the end, in X-Men Origins, he plays Deadpool, and then at the very end he is, mouth sewed shut, swords coming out of his arms, Deadpool. But based on Deadpool and Wolverine, X-Men Origins is the current timeline, 10,005. So that must be just totally retconned or something, because that doesn't make sense, actually. Like, so that is a plot hole.
So I mean, I think you could. All right, man. If you want to get weird with the X-Men,
it's a little weird.
Timeline,
it's a little weird, and I'm cool with just ignoring it. But
it
gets
weirder than that, though, right? Because okay, so you could make the argument that takes place in the same timeline as Logan, X-Men Wolverine Origins, right? And by that same virtue, you could say so does the Wolverine, which of course leads into X-Men Days of Future Past, which leads into Logan, right? So like you can make all that sort of work, right? Where this gets fucking weird is when you start to include the X-Men First Class stories, right?
Yeah.
Because like you do get Cyclops eventually in those stories, and if you recall, like in X-Men X-Men Origins Wolverine, Cyclops is in that movie, right? And like he's in a school, and like he sees Charles Xavier at the end, and Charles is walking, and he's bald and old, and according to this timeline, he should be the same age as James McAvoy when he meets Cyclops. And it's a different Cyclops too. So like, what? They can't all be taking place in the same timeline unless like you say X-Men Days of Future Past like changed everything. I guess you could say that. Oh.
Yeah.
It's weird. It's really weird. It doesn't.
It's weird.
It doesn't make sense if you apply too much thought to it.
Yeah.
I got one more for you. If you apply too much thought to this doesn't work. Okay. So the plot of this movie depends on us believing, and I guess Wade believing, that his world is going to be deleted without an anchor being, without Logan, because Logan is dead.
Mm-hmm.
But when is Logan dead? Because Logan is dead, according to the movie Logan, in 2029. So when does this take place? Because, to my knowledge, when he goes to see 616, Wade, Tony's still alive. They refer to Tony, right? So it's sometime before... I think it's sometime before the events of Ultron. So it's like around... What would that be? 2015, 2017? Somewhere around that era, right? So it's a lot later. A couple years go by, I think, when he's not with Vanessa anymore. Or maybe months go by when he's not with Vanessa. I think they actually said it. I think it's 2019. So we're still 10 years off from when Logan supposedly dies, right? Which means he hasn't actually died in that time. But here's the thing that I can't get over. Every anchor being is going to die at some point, right? Like, that's just how life works. So, like, when does it matter when an anchor being dies? Like, does the fact that they just exist, like... Is that enough for the universe to keep going? You see what I mean? Like, if you apply too much thought to this, like, it unravels. Yeah,
because, like, if an anchor being dies, technically, the world will slowly unravel in about 2,000 years.
2,000 years, right. But he went to go see Logan's corpse, and Logan was dead. So, what? Did he go to the future when Logan was dead to see if he was still dead? Like, what? Like, what's going on there?
Yeah, you're right about not wanting to like read too much into it, because now
it totally undoes the fun of this movie.
Now it doesn't make sense. But it those are fun questions though, right? Like, well, every anchor being eventually is going to pass. So is this just how time keeps itself from having too many timelines? Once the anchor being passes in 2,000 years, this timeline will no longer exist, and this is how the Master of Time essentially keeps some order. Which I guess kind of makes sense if you think about it, right? makes me really want to know like who the anchor beings are of everything. It's so interesting. Who's the anchor being of 616? Spider-Man, I'm assuming, or was it Tony Stark? And now we're just slowly going to implode over 2,000 years. Like, so that's kind of a fun thought.
Maybe that's why. Maybe that's how we get Doctor Doom in the 616. They're like, we need a Tony. We got to get a Tony. They get a Tony, but it's the wrong guy.
Oh, maybe.
I only say that because there was an interview with Kevin Feige where someone specifically like asked him about anchor beings, and like Feige showed like a lot of interest in the fact that he brought that up. He was like, I'm really glad that that's where your head is, like with anchor beings, like, and like he was implying like don't forget about that, like,
right,
remember that.
Yeah.
So they have plans for that idea.
Very, very interesting.
So we gotta talk about Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds.
Yes.
So this movie was sold as being a buddy cop film, and these two went everywhere to go market this movie.
Oh, they went wild.
Everywhere I looked, they were there.
Yeah,
they were on
too wild.
A little bit in some cases. I saw them like on every like Tonight Show. They're on Hot Ones.
Yeah.
They honestly their energy is impressive.
Big time.
Yeah, buddy cop movie. What'd you think about Wolverine and Deadpool finally together on screen?
I mean, they're the best. Them being such good friends too in real life really just comes through on the screen with how they, acted together. And then those two characters being just so brutal, right? They're just both known for being totally brutal in battle. And so we just basically spared no expense on this R-rated film, and the fight scenes and the gore. Definitely the most gore from a Deadpool film, I think, right?
Oh yeah, hands down.
Definitely more than the first one. I rewatched that one recently, and I thought it was more gory than it was. And then I watched this, and I was like, man, this is a whole nother level of just blood splatter. So yeah, really just awesome. I mean, I could watch it like 100 more times because of Deadpool and Wolverine. So that was really great. Yeah. What did you think?
Oh yeah, I mean, like, this is the fun of the movie, right?
Right.
I think Ryan Reynolds is this character, right? Like, he's clearly a big fanboy, and he willed this project, all of these projects, into existence. Mm-hmm. And while he is very fun, he's fun as this character. I could see like how you might get like a little annoyed with him too. But I feel like Hugh Jackman as Logan is the perfect counterweight. Yeah. He's like the perfect counterweight to this character, like he is the ultimate straight man. He is the X-Men, right? Like, he's the X-Man. By the way, chills at that line. Freaking loved that moment. As far as Hugh goes, I do not think that this is the best Wolverine movie necessarily. Like, I think that's Logan. However, I think this is the best Hugh Jackman has been at playing Wolverine. I feel like we saw something a little different in him in this movie. Mm-hmm. Just like, I mean, he's always been about the character. He's always clearly loved the character. I don't know. There was just like a level of like excitement and energy that like I don't think like we've seen with him before. Like we've seen the broken Logan multiple times, right? And this Logan is different too, but he was ready to be fun in this movie, right?
Yeah.
And damn, was he fun.
Yeah.
Biggest highlight for me in this entire movie, the fight in the Honda Odyssey. I love that fight. It's incredible. Super creative, hilarious, great resolution at the end with him tied up in the seatbelts. Also, having two immortals stuck in a fight, or not immortals, but two characters who have an amazing healing factor stuck in a fight is pure comedy gold. It's just it's pure comedy gold.
They actually tired themselves out, and they were both passed out, and then they didn't even realize that the car is being driven away with him inside, like sleeping. You know, that's how long they fought.
On that note, Nick, I was thinking about this fight after the movie, and I really did love like the choreography that was done in this movie, like in general. The first Deadpool and Logan fight, when Logan's like on all fours, like running like a Wolverine at him, amazing. This fight, the Odyssey fight's amazing. The pan shot where they're fighting the Deadpool core, also incredible. Like,
yeah, sick.
And I was thinking about fights in the MCU, and I was like, well, yeah, the pan shot and the Odyssey fight, like those are two of my favorite fights in the MCU now. And I was trying to think of other fights in the MCU, and I couldn't think of that many that have actually stuck with me over the years. Like choreography, by and large, is not something I really associate with the MCU.
Yeah, like I'm only thinking of like the bigger fight scenes, right, where they're just like all out brawling, more like minions, you know, like or minions, but like you know, like when they're fighting the Chitauri, which you know that's not Thanos, so they're doing pretty well. There's just a lot of them, so they're just continually using their same moves to beat them.
Right, they're just smashing over and over again.
Right, and then when they do fight Thanos, Thanos wipes the floor with everyone, so that's not really a battle. And then it's kind of the same at the end of Endgame. There's not really a lot of choreography fighting with Thanos because he's so powerful. So it's either one of them has the upper hand or he does.
Yeah.
And so that's a really good point. I guess the thing I slightly think of the scene in, I think it's at the beginning of Infinity War when Scarlet Witch and Vision are like walking in I forget what town, the European town they're in, but then they get you know, two of Thanos's like lackeys find them,
Proxima and Ebony Maw, I think. Not Ebony Maw.
And
not who the other one is. Purvis Blade. But
then we get Cap there too, right? He's like on the other side of the train, and then he catches the spear with a really cool moment. I think of that fight scene, but only because of some of the cool moments in it. Not necessarily. I don't know if the choreography. I don't think it touches this from Deadpool Wolverine.
It's a good hype scene for sure.
Yeah, that's really what it is. Yeah, but that's a good point.
I can only think of two that like I truly like really love that stick out to me. Ironically, it's another one that takes place inside of a car. It's the bus fight in Shang-Chi.
Oh yeah,
that one's really good. Amazing fight.
That one's really good.
Yeah, that one, and the choreography in this particular fight isn't like anything crazy. It's more so the brutality of the choreography it sticks out to me a lot. It's the first fight with Green Goblin in No Way Home when he's just like smashing him through floors of the building.
Yeah.
That fight was pretty cool. Not because of fancy choreography, just like cool creative ways to use the environment.
I was also just thinking of the Natasha Romanoff and Hawkeye fight in Avengers when they're
That's a good one.
When she knocks him into the pole to like get Loki out of his head, basically. That one's pretty good too. From a choreography perspective. That one's a lot quicker though. Anyway, but yeah, great point about the choreography. Like definitely stands out for this film for sure. I feel like, you know, we kind of touched on the multiverse stuff. We touched on our overall thoughts and Anger Beings. I mean, we have to talk about the Void and all the cameos.
I was hoping that's where we're going next.
Like that's really what's left, right? Like that's it.
So if Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman are like, you know, the fun, or I guess like the heart of this movie, right? Like in being like the buddy cop, like let's say like, you know, they're the road trip, right? And the journey that they go on are all the wacky characters that they come across in the Void, and it's like a carnival of cameos. Yeah. All right. So I'm just gonna say it. My favorite cameo, without question, is Chris Evans. Perfect, flawless joke. Amazing joke. They totally got me with it. There was a woman in the audience that I was watching this with, where she, I don't know if she reacted to the revelation that he was Johnny Storm. Um, but like like when we first like hear him, like he's got the cloak up, so like you're kind of like, oh, what's up? Is it not really like Chris Evans? Like what's going on? And then he turns around and reveals, I am Chris Evans, right? Like it's him. There's a woman in my audience that the moment he turned around, physical audible gasp, like like couldn't believe Chris Evans was like in the movie. Like that was the big surprise for her.
Oh my
Yeah,
god.
no idea if she cared about Johnny Storm, but I sure did. I gave a physical gasp. That
So
got me good.
don't hate me, but I didn't love that cameo right away.
Oh, interesting. What was
I
up?
only decided that I really liked it and thought it was hilarious at the end credits when he did that whole monologue by himself.
That was great.
That was fantastic. And I read later that he didn't want anyone to hold up lines for him. He memorized that whole thing and did it in one take. We're typically like if you're doing a cameo, I guess like on the off screen, like they're holding up the cards for you, the cue cards, so
Yeah.
you know what your lines are. He's like I want to nail this. I'm memorizing the whole line, so he did that whole thing and from his brain, which is really good. But initially, I was like, I mean, I don't know. Just for me, it's just like it still was too soon to see Chris Evans in the MCU, but it was funny. Thankfully, they made him Johnny Storm, which was funny. And then the way that he dies is incredibly insane. And that's really how we find out how powerful Cassandra Nova is, because she just rips off everything, all the flesh from you, and with the flick of the wrist. Like that's way too much power. And of course, like her being a sibling of Charles Xavier was a fascinating storyline to introduce, because until now, like, and they even hinted at the movie, like Charles Xavier didn't even know he had a sister in the womb, right? Like she was taken from the womb and sent to the void because she was too powerful or some crazy shit. And so that's really interesting. And I didn't hate that. Like I was just, and I don't know, they did it well enough to where I was like, okay, cool, I'm with it. Like, probably because she's at the void and she doesn't really have there's no harm there. But yeah, honestly, I think Blade might have been my favorite cameo, because I was just like not expecting that at all, right? Because he like kind of started it all, and I mean that was like, I'm still kind of shocked that he was there. Like that was really cool.
Same.
So,
I did really appreciate his line of only ever gonna be one blade. Like,
yeah,
but is there?
yeah, and then Deadpool looks at the camera and does like a little eyebrow raise, and it's basically just like, who's going to tell him?
I forgot about that. I forgot about that line.
It's basically like, who's going to tell him? Like, so funny.
Yeah. I was also greatly surprised by that. If it wasn't Chris Evans as Johnny Storm, which like actually I'm not done talking about Johnny Storm real quick. Okay. This really was like the absolute like a highlight for me in this movie. The joke about like, you got him killed, the budget couldn't take it anymore. Like
Yeah.
that was fantastic. They've done budget jokes in the past so like one of my problems with like the overall Deadpool like franchise, or I guess like, yeah, I'm gonna go with franchise because I don't think this is necessarily true in the comics. So because he's like a fourth wall breaker, right? He's got to interact with the audience, and there are times where like Deadpool will say things to like remind us that he knows that he's in a movie, right? And there are some jokes, such as like in the first movie when he's like, why is it only ever you two in the X-Mansion? Could Fox not pay the other X-Men to be here?
Right.
The first time you hear that joke, you're like, that's funny. But then like the second time and the third and the fourth and however many times you hear it afterwards, it really loses its charm.
Right.
Because like the impact of the joke is gone because like, right? And like it doesn't even change, like the delivery like has nothing to do with it. It's just the nature of the joke is like we're being meta about ourselves right now, right? And that was the best like meta. We physically don't actually have the budget to keep an actor that you like in this movie. I thought that was the best that they ever pulled. I will probably laugh at that again because of like how funny that is delivered. One other thing about Johnny, this is just a fun nerd thing. So I find it hilarious and outrageous that Johnny Storm is depowered by Pyro of all people. Because like there's no way in comic book universe that ever goes down. Like that fight, Johnny wins that fight every time. However, as somebody who actually loves Pyro and wishes Pyro was stronger, I loved this. I loved that he took out the character who created a supernova in the second Fantastic Four movie, if you recall.
Yeah.
Crazy. I love that Pyro's in this movie and that he owned Johnny Storm and then comically landed on his nuts. Like, great.
Yeah.
Dad, would watch again.
I thought it was really cool too, and it also gives you an idea of how strong the X-Men are compared to maybe some other MCU characters, right? Like Pyro just turning his flame off. Flame off, Johnny.
Damn! Why wasn't that the line?
I don't know why they didn't make that joke. That seems like really low-hanging, hilarious fruit that they decided not to use.
Deadpool is not beyond low-hanging fruit. We're well aware.
It's like low-hanging obvious fruit, and he decided not to take a bite.
Take it.
But whatever. So Blade, obviously, I mentioned was like one of my favorite ones, and Pyro was probably one of my favorite ones as well because I always liked that character in the X-Men.
I remember. I actually thought of you. I remember that you were actually, as a kid, you were super into the rivalry between Iceman and Pyro. Yeah.
So it was cool to see him, and then overall, like, you know, all the other characters they had, really cool. But then of course, like the main group in the Void was, you know, Elektra, Blade, X-23.
Yeah, X-23.
And then Gambit.
And Gambit. This was my second favorite cameo.
That was also one I did not love. So I love Gambit. He's one of my favorite X-Men characters. And I was excited that he was going to be in this film. And I'm pretty sure that, you know, the whole point was it was supposed to be a little funny. But it did not land for me. Like, Channing Tatum was like, it was too joking for what I would have liked to have seen from that particular character. Especially with like how long Channing Tatum's been trying to play that character. I was a little surprised that he was okay with doing it in like a more joking manner with the dialogue, you know? And so I was a little disappointed in that because I too want to see a
real
Gambit character, and we got it a little bit, but we didn't get the full-fledged Gambit character. It was funny at times, but it was a little too Deadpool over the top for me most of the time, to be honest.
I feel you on that.
And then it was super random to see Elektra. Like, that was the most random one for me.
Yeah, because like I honestly kind of forgot about her.
Yeah.
I forgot about Jennifer Garner's Elektra.
The second I saw her weapon, I was like, really? Elektra's in this? Why?
Gotta get a girl. Gotta get a girl.
I guess so. Like, that's the reason, I guess. Like, from the old school Fox, you know, from there really wasn't a lot of female superheroes.
You know what the real reason is? The real reason is these are the guys who said yes.
Yeah,
that's true. Like that's true. The real reason. Like,
sent a list of 200 people, 20 replied. That's what we went with.
He tried to get Rogue and Jean Grey, and like they were just like, nah, we're not doing that.
Yeah,
that's silly.
Rogue would have been cool. Jean Grey would have been cool. Although I'm still, it depends on the Jean Grey because I'm still thinking of like Dark Phoenix and.
I no hate on Sophie Turner, but like I think she was miscast for that role.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
In defense of Gambit, I totally hear what you're saying on Gambit, and I could totally understand like people just like not being into that. You actually brought up a reason that I hadn't thought of. That we've yet to get like a good Gambit on screen. If you remember, we got a Gambit.
Yeah, Taylor Kitsch.
Wolverine. Yeah,
Taylor Kitsch.
Yeah,
Which I thought he did.
Why wasn't he in the movie?
What's that?
Why wasn't he in the movie?
Right? I liked him as Gambit, though. I mean, it was a small part.
Yeah, but he's not.
Gambit.
He was cool, but he's not Gambit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he didn't like steal a show or anything. But the Gambit character is so fucking cool that like Taylor Kitsch, like it was cool when he showed up. You know?
Right.
And so, yeah, it was just it was just a little disappointing because I also like Channing Tatum. I want a Gambit. I want the real Gambit, and so we got it. We didn't get the full. We got a joking version of him. So whatever.
So in defense of that, in defense of the Gambit, are you sure that's what they call you? You sure that's not what you just want them to? And they didn't. So like you said, I think they took a big swing with Channing Tatum as Gambit, right? Like, because you either knew the story behind that, or you're totally unfamiliar, right?
Right.
And I would be willing to bet most people who saw this movie do not know about the project that never was, right?
Right.
What I love about this, though, is that movie doesn't exist because of the Disney acquisition of Fox Century, right?
Yeah.
And with that, they canceled a bunch of projects. That was one of them. We were all sad that we would never get to see Channing Tatum actually be the character, right? After he had practiced his Cajun accent, apparently. This movie, which apparently this movie was like talked about like right away, like during the acquisition, was like, yeah, we want to bring this character into the MCU. How are we going to do that? It was one of the first topics of X-Men franchise that they talked about. This movie is basically like a meta story of the actual Disney acquisition of Fox Century, right? Like you could totally make the argument of like Jon Favreau and Tony, like they represent Disney, right? They want to bring eventually, like not the first time, but like we hear later from Paradox that they want to bring, or I guess the higher ups, right? The higher ups want to bring Deadpool into the MCU, right? Like that they're Disney, whoever the higher ups are, right? Presumably Feige. Maybe works at the TVA, or it's Kevin, right? Who knows? Right. Paradox feels like he's old Fox Century. He can't wait to blow it all up, right? He's ready to move on from this into the bigger, better storyline of it all, right? He romanticizes the glory days with Logan, right? And this, like I said, this whole thing is just like a microcosm of what actually happened in the real world. So this real thing that was the reason that the Gambit movie doesn't exist is also what gave Channing Tatum the opportunity to actually play the character.
Right.
So for that, like I kind of love that wink and a nudge, right? That's pretty great.
Yeah. I do love that, and the cool part too is it's Channing Tatum like getting to put the character on screen and then letting the audience react to it, and then hopefully giving Disney a reason to make the fucking movie the right way, you know? And because he was in the void, technically there could be a Gambit in 10,005, Earth 10,005. There could be a Gambit in 616, right? We don't know what timeline Gambit this was that we met in the void, right? We don't, and so, we don't know what timeline Gambit.
Yeah, we have no idea.
Like, any of those characters we met, we don't technically know what timeline they're from. We just know that Deadpool and Wolverine are from 10,005.
Yeah, I think the only clue, and this isn't really even a clue, the only thing he really even indicates that like he at least has like some sort of familiarity with like the outside world is like he knows who Logan is, right? Despite the fact that there's never been a Logan like in the void. In the void, which by the way, wow, that I just said that out loud and that just hit me. What a fascinating little detail that is, that there's never been a Logan that's been in the void, right? Like it's never supposed to happen. Like Logan is always just supposed to be there. Even comic accurate short Logan, he's supposed to be there.
Yeah, that was hysterical. Dude, I saw like a spoiler of that online before I saw the movie. I was like, oh my God, someone like this is hilarious that someone edited a photo to make it look like short Logan, and then it was in the movie. I was like, oh fuck, it was real.
It does look like it's purposely bad.
I thought it was just like an internet thing, and it was actually real. I was like, oh no, this is great. Yeah, so good. Dog pool.
Dog pool.
The ugliest dog I've ever seen. The ugliest dog I've ever seen in my entire life.
She was voted ugliest dog in the UK.
Oh, well, that makes sense then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, she's
everything makes sense. Everything makes sense now.
She's a bulldog and a Chinese watercrest.
It doesn't matter. It honestly doesn't matter.
Those are two abominations.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Yeah. Anyway, I just wanted to mention Dogpool real quick.
For the record, Dogpool has a tongue that could easily let her apply to be Venom if she ever wanted to.
Yes.
Want to be Venom Pool or Venom Dog? You know?
Venom Pool. Oh my god. That's a timeline we don't need or want. What else? Anything else you want to talk about from Deadpool and Wolverine?
Just a couple of things. Daphne King as Laura. Super cool that she was in this movie.
Very cool.
When Deadpool brings her up during like one of their walkabouts, it was like a quick like wink that like, hey, you're probably gonna see her. So like, yeah, I got excited, and then of course like she shows up. I don't think the talk at the fire really works for me when she's talking to Logan. I think they went for an emotional swing there, and like this is actually one of the lowlights of the movie for me. It was like I think they kind of missed it here. It feels like they like wanted it to be sad too much. Like, I just didn't feel anything for that conversation. I like the idea that she's there. Like, I think is great. And that this character could have a second chance at bonding with like the girl who's basically his daughter, right? And I was looking forward to that. And if they do something with that in the future, like that's great. I applaud that. I'm here for it. But yeah, I didn't really care for that conversation. I was a little disappointed. However, when we get our big superhero team shot, I did smile like an idiot when she took out the sunglasses, and like that was like,
yeah, that was cool.
That was her mask and cape. Like, it was like, hell yeah. That's
so,
great.
That was really cool. And as you were talking about this, I was thinking about Logan some more. When you brought up, the emotional part at the fire. Because, like, the Logan from 10,005 is dead. And so they had to go get another one. But we don't know which Earth this one's from, right? We don't know which timeline this one's from that they went and got. We just know that he's the worst Logan of all the Logans.
Yeah.
What are the chances he's from 616?
I don't think so.
Would they do that?
Because, I say only no because we know that the X-Men had to be a thing in that world, wherever it was. And
got it. Okay.
At least to our knowledge so far, the X-Men don't exist.
Oh, in 616?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, the X-Men don't exist. Mutants we've had some hints at.
Right.
But not the X-Men. Well, but that's the thing. Like, in the new Logan's world, they're all dead, right? They all died. So, technically it's possible that they don't exist in 616 because they're all dead now.
I mean, maybe.
I don't think that's what they're gonna do, but I just had the thought and I had to say it out loud. I think you're right here. Like, that's not what they're gonna do.
Because it's technically possible for them to shoehorn that in. Yes.
Right. Yeah. Okay. But we want the X-Men in 616, so that's not the case. That's basically how that's gonna go. Anyway, sorry. But yeah, I love that Deadpool had to find the worst Logan to fill his void, if you will.
Right, to fill his miserable universe. I got one more nitpick with the movie. Truthfully I have two, but like I'm gonna waste time on one of them. So Deadpool has two different motivations in this movie, and I don't really like understand why there are two. So there's the one that we've been talking about, and that's to save his world, he needs to get another anchor being and throw him in there, right? The second one, though, that we haven't really talked about is the whole reason why he went to the MCU in the first place, which was he wants to feel important. He wants to feel like he matters. And we find out that this is because of Vanessa, that he wants to, feel like he matters in the eyes of Vanessa. Because I guess, like, he's got some self-esteem issues. I don't know. Or, like, he feels like, he's this, all he is this killer. And that's all he brings to the table. In the eyes of this woman that he like adores, right? And we end up finding out that the reason why they're broken up is he hates himself a lot, and he basically he self-imposes that hate onto her. Like, not that he hates her, but like he tricks himself into thinking that she hates him because he's a loser, right? That felt convoluted, and B, I don't understand why you need another motivation when your first motivation is so simple and clear of, I just want to save my entire world that fits in this one picture frame.
Right.
Very easy motivation. And also, why for the third movie in a row is the motivation, I'm doing it for my girlfriend. I want to be with my girlfriend. Like, 3 movies in a row. It's like, come on, man. Like, really?
Yeah. That's a great point. Definitely could have done without that. Motivation's all you need in the picture, especially knowing the timeline's going to be wiped out. That's it. Yeah. That's perfect. Don't do anything else.
Don't do anything else. Yeah. Simple.
It's a great point. Well said.
I think they wanted a reason to get like some of the other Deadpool characters involved, but like the one character that you are involving in that situation, I feel like we never really even see Vanessa. You know?
Yeah, we don't. So it's a little extra.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right.
That's all I got on that. I really liked Emma Corrin as Cassandra Nova.
Crushed it.
She was super fun.
Yep.
And terrifying. She was both fun and terrifying. Who knew that was a thing? Mm-hmm. Actually, yes, I did. She apparently based the character her performance partly on Christoph Waltz from Inglourious Bastards.
Jesus. Yeah, there you go.
No, you can see it. You're like, oh yeah. I got it.
I wonder if we'll see her again. I know she's in the void, right? But
is she, or did she get vaporized?
Oh no, she's dead. She did get vaporized at the end. She's gone. She gone. Sorry. Yeah, she gone. But where there's one,
could be more.
Technically, I feel like she might have been an anomaly in the multiverse.
Oh that's true.
She's the only one in the void. She was an anomaly. I wonder what timeline she was from. That'd be interesting to know.
That would be kind of cool. Yeah, is she from a James McAvoy timeline or like a Patrick Stewart timeline?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So anyway, I got nothing else. I think that overall, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I don't think the movie sets up any real purpose immediately for the MCU, other than kind of just being what Feige had said a few months ago about it kind of being a little bit of a reset, right? But like a soft reset. It's not, it's more like a bringing together everything and then going on from here. They're almost like putting everything that's come before it into the loom and then coming out with one timeline, if you will, right? Like, this is where we're going to go now.
They're just mashing it all together.
Yeah, so, but I think that not a real purpose, though, yet, at least. They dangled some stuff, so that it might be more important later. But I think overall it was just more supposed to be a fun movie, which it totally was. So that's it.
How did you, be honest? Did you get teary-eyed during that Green Day montage?
No, I didn't, but that was awesome.
It was awesome.
I was too happy to see that they were doing like a whole montage thing of like all the moments before. I was like, oh damn, that's legit.
It was such a great way to like say goodbye to that era, right?
Yeah, it was like a Fox Studios superhero advertisement almost.
Yeah, I mean, it was like, hey, did you love this? Go back and watch the old movies.
Yeah, that's exactly what I want to do now. Yeah. So, might have to.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we have to watch Days of Future Past at some point for our time travel draft anyway.
Do. I'm so excited for that.
But I know, me too.
especially now with like the implications of like this movie. Be fun to theory craft after watching Days of Future Past.
Yeah, facts.
Yeah, facts. Taylor Swift was not in this movie. Was a little disappointed. I thought for sure they were gonna pull it off.
I'm glad they didn't. That would have been too much.
I kind of feel like they were trying really hard, and like it was gonna be like something that they inserted like late into production.
Yeah, maybe.
Because like, so we didn't actually talk about Lady Pool. So and how she's Blake Lively. Yeah, so like she's Blake Lively, and like we never get to see Blake, right? We just hear her. So I almost wonder if like that was supposed to be Taylor. Like they were really like gunning for that, and like it just didn't work out for like whatever the reason was.
Yeah, very possible.
They were like, we'll settle for my hot wife instead, I guess.
You got anything else?
Yeah. What are you gonna rate this movie? It's out of 5. We're doing the same exact thing that we did for House of the Dragon. I'm doing a 4. I'm doing a 4. Solid 4.
Nice.
It's my new strategy. I'm just gonna go 0.2 points beneath you every time.
I love it. I love it.
It's like you said. It's far from perfect. It's not supposed to be. It is. I think what it set out to do, it did really well. And it was funny, good time.
Absolutely. Hell of a film.
Yeah. You know what? I'll give it one more accolade. One more. I'm a sucker for all like Marvel projects, really. I have ones that I think are much better than others, right? But even like the bad ones, with the exception of Thor: Dark World, I'll rewatch them, have a good time. Phase 4 and Phase 5, there haven't been a lot of movies or shows that have been like, I'm itching to watch that again. Yeah. This is the first movie I think in a long time, maybe since No Way Home, that I've been like, I kind of really want to rewatch that.
Yeah, this one's got a really high rewatch rating for sure, especially out of the recent ones. The other one that comes to mind is Multiverse of Madness.
Ooh, yeah, I actually did rewatch that one. I did.
That one's fun. That one's awesome. Definitely rewatchable. So, but yeah, I agree with you there. All right. Also, I guess to close out, you can find us on Threads. We're spitting some, I don't know, fun thoughts there. So please follow us on Threads. And
he says we, but like 9 out of 10 of those threads is Nick. Every like once in a while, the one that's not getting any love, that's me. Like look for the ones that like aren't getting a lot of traction. That's me. You want to have a good time? Find Nick's threads. He's killing it on Threads.
Follow us on Threads. We're on YouTube, of course, wherever you listen to podcasts. Subscribe. Let us know what you think. And until next time,
may the review be with you.
Peace.